This is Shula Romano Horin, and recently I traveled in the West Bank from Jerusalem, the capital of Israel, to the city of Hebron, 19 miles distant, which mostly 80% is under the control of the Palestinian Authority, to find out what's going on in the disputed territory of the West Bank, Judea and Samaria. Are Jewish settlement, which are Jewish community, obstacle to peace? Are they obstacle to the establishment of Palestinian state if the Palestinians agree to not to reject another offer by the Israelis? And are the Jewish settlement themselves scattered, as the Palestinian Arab and Western media telling us? Are they scattered all over the daily build-up, all over the West Bank, suffocating the Palestinians, preventing them building their own Palestinian city and villages? Are the Jewish settlement really the obstacle to peace? So I decided to travel to Judea and Samaria and find out for myself. As you can see by the filming, I'm from the Show Me State. What I saw was the Jewish settlement are only in 1.7% of the West Bank territory. It means less than 2%. And the Arab city and the villages and town with 96% of the Palestinian population are in around 40% of the West Bank. And 60% of the West Bank is mostly empty, desolate, and unpopulated area of desert and hills in Judea and Samaria, also called the West Bank. Look at the video for yourself. You can see mostly empty area. All the Jewish settlement together are in 40 square miles, populated by 130 Jewish settlement communities with less than 400,000 Jews. And 96% of the Palestinians live under the civil administration control of the Palestinian Authority in 40% of the West Bank. And the rest is alone and desolate. And both Jews and Palestinians can live together. And thousands of more Palestinian towns and cities can be built in 60% of a desolated area. And after 50 years of Israelis were able to liberate the West Bank, Judea and Samaria, after being attacked viciously, repeatedly by the Jordanian Arabs, for over 50 years, only 130 small, tiny Jewish community were established in the ancestral Jewish land where King David and King Saul and Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the Jewish forefathers, were walking around, living and breathing and building the Jewish home and Jewish kingdom. So, I traveled to Judea and Samaria recently, and most of the world simply refer to this area as the West Bank. When Jordan really renamed the area after it conquered it in 1948, defeating the Israelis, and for 19 years they exist in the West Bank and East Jerusalem and never established a Palestinian state, because for all those people don't know, there was never historically an Arab or Muslim state west of the Jordan River. There was never a Palestinian state. That was an Arab or Muslim. The Jews were Palestinian called, like my mother. This was the region, the West Bank, in ancient Jewish kingdom, Judah and Israel, that was inhabited by the Jewish people since the conquest of the Canaanite, roughly 3,000 years ago. The Palestinians sometimes make this outrageous claim that they are descendants of the Canaanite, the Canaanite. But their arrival was at the earliest after the founding of Islam in Mecca and Medina at the start of the 7th century. It means 1,007 years after the establishment of the Jewish kingdom in the Bible. So when Arabs left the Arabian Peninsula and began conquering the surrounding land 1,700 years after the Jewish kingdom under King Saul and King David was created with a capital in Jerusalem, the people now refer to themselves as Palestinians are primarily from families that immigrated to Palestine in the early 20th century, many of whom came to take advantage of the favorable condition. Strong economy and best healthcare was established and created by the Jewish pioneer who started to escaping the Russian pogroms in 1881 and came into the land to establish a Jewish home because they had nowhere to go. And they built the infrastructure. And when they came, like Mark Twain say, the place was desolate. There was nothing. There were only infested swamps all over. The Jews dried the swamp, built, planted, made it, flourished the land, and then the Arabs from all around the area came to enjoy what the Jews built. When they say Palestine, Palestine is the name given to the Jewish area by the Romans after they destroyed the Jewish temple in 17 to the Common Era, and after they quelled the Roman another Jewish rebellion, the Bar Kokhba rebellion in 135 to the Common Era, to stop the emotional connection and rename it Palestine is from the name of Israel and Judea, to stop the emotional connection of the Jews to the land by renaming them after the enemy, bitter enemy of King David, the Philistine, that were really related to the Greeks and live in a very narrow area in the Gaza area, and really 3,000 years ago, and disappeared as people just 100 years after. So as you can see, through my drive filming the West Bank, Judea and Samaria, the first thought that usually occurred to me are how desolate and vacant it is. I suspect that most people who hear that more than 1 million, some claim 1.5 million or 2 million Palestinians live in Judea and Samaria, imagine the area as a collection of metropolitan adjusting to each other like cities along the east coast of the United States. Given that image, it is not surprising that many people are horrified when they hear that Israel is building new communities, which they didn't build for the last 25 years, building new settlements, which they did not. They only build upward in the same area of the 2% area from the West Bank. They build with buildings, and in the area itself they build houses and kindergarten and school. So the world is horrified when they hear that Israel is building new community settlement in the area, because this community must surely force out Palestinians already living there. But this is not the case. With the exception of few large cities such as Arab city as Ramallah and Nablus, Shechem, most Palestinians live in small, isolated villages in town, as you can see here. And how do you know is when I film which one is Arab village? Because mostly the color is gray. Arab villages also inside Israel and also in the Arab world are usually, you can see, basic concrete gray structures, usually with no garden, no grass, no playground. And if you can see from my film, when you see a community, a small community building with a shingle, pink or red shingle on the roof, you see garden or playground, this is the Jewish community. So, with the exception of few large cities such as Ramallah and Nablus, most Palestinians live in small, isolated villages and towns. And the Jewish community, also mostly small, are often equally remote. Sometimes Jews and Arabs are close enough to see each other's home and field, but they are not abutting each other. The view from the road is mostly rolling rocky hills, as you can see, with occasional groves of olives or fruit trees. When you enter some of the larger, older settlements, you discover oases filled with trees, green space, playgrounds, synagogues, schools, and social centers. Close-knit communities have developed, and residents enjoy comfortable lifestyle. A short drive from Jerusalem and Tel Aviv, but don't forget, Israel is only 8,000 square miles, and the width between Tel Aviv, Kfar Saba, And Judea and Samaria, the West Bank, is like 9 to 15 miles wide. So it's really, Israel itself is a button. The West Bank, it's next to each other. Everything is very small. Israel is the size of New Jersey. In sort of cramped apartment, many of the settlers live in lovely single family home for a fraction of what they would pay for a couple bedroom in the high rise in Tel Aviv. We also drove through the industrial zones outside the settlement, and I was told that they employ 4,000 Palestinians. The Palestinians are protected by the same labor law as Israeli employees, and they make significantly more money than they could in Palestinian-run businesses. As you can see from driving through the West Bank, the nearby settlements were high on a hill above the city, and in no way did they harm the Palestinians living below. Second, as you can see from my filming, the main cities are growing of the Palestinians, while international critics become hysterical when Israel considers construction of a new home. We build not new settlement, new city, new home in the 2% of the West Bank. The world is silent while Palestinians build as much as they want on disputed territory with no control. Third, you can see that a lot of holy sites like the Joseph tomb are in the heart of the cities of like Shechem, Nablus, and the Palestinians are obligated to allow Jews to visit the shrines and protect it, but Jews do not have unfettered access to this holy place, something the Palestinians demand of their own sacred site. Not worse, the Palestinian Authority has allowed the tomb to be repeatedly attacked and burned and desecrated and destroyed. So the holy site of the Jews under their control, they're being every day being attacked. The tomb of Rachel was attacked. We had to build it inside the fortress. The cave of the patriarch is attacked, even though they said it is one of the holy lands. So not only we give them all the freedom and respect and protect their holy site, they destroy our holy site, and then they ask and they try to claim that our holy site, the tomb of Rachel, and the cave of the patriarch with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob buried there, and the Western Wall and the Temple Mount belong to them. So they are also, everything is really a mask and a master plan. There is really, according to the Palestinians, there was never a Jewish kingdom there. There was never a Jewish holy site. We have no right to the land. Another thing about the West Bank, there are refugee camps in many areas still visible from the overlook, which raises the question, why does this refugee camps exist in Judea and Samaria, in the West Bank? The Palestinian Authority have been in control of the city like Nablus and other, or mostly, as I say, of the 96% of the people for more than 20 years. And yet they've done nothing to eliminate Islam, where thousands of people live in poverty. And the Jordanians controlled it for 19 years, also didn't do anything about the refugee. Well, Jews, almost 1 million Jews, were expelled from Arab country, like my family, from all the Arab country, took their property, and we brought them. They came to Israel, and we made them all Israeli citizen, and they have a life. Most of the refugees in the world are no more refugees. How many years, 70 years, you can be a refugee? When you become a citizen of Jordan, a citizen of Lebanon, citizen of Syria, citizen of Saudi Arabia, when you become really a citizen of the Palestinian Authority. The Palestinian Authority has received billions of dollars donation from all over the world and from the Israelis, but has not spent a single dollar to build permanent housing so that those so-called refugees can escape their situation. Instead of spending 7% of its budget to pay salary to terrorists in Israeli prison and the family of suicide bomber, the Palestinian Authority could be improving the lives of their people in many of those so-called refugee camp. The Palestinian Authority prefer, however, to keep the camps open to promote festering hatred of Israel and serve as an incubator for terrorists. Meanwhile, the champions of the Palestinian cause all over the world, the United Nations, the European, the Arab, the Muslim world, the Chinese, the Russian, all of them remain silent. Unless Israel can somewhere be blamed, the denial of the Palestinian human right does not interest them. Only if the Jews killing self-defense, protecting themselves, the world talk about it. What happened in Gaza, what happened in Judea and Samaria. When Arabs kill Arabs, when 500,000 Arabs, Muslims, were killed in Syria from a civil war, no one talk, nobody is interested. In reality, the Palestinian leadership prevent Israelis from dismantling or rebuilding new area for the Palestinians. When Israel defeated the Jordanians in 1967, there was zero infrastructure of any kind in the West Bank. Israel had to build electric grids and distribute electricity to the Palestinians, fresh, clean water, and build hospitals, schools, university, and roads in the West Bank. When the Palestinians tried to terrorize and shoot at the Israeli driving in the highway together, Israel also had to build a bypass road around the main area and Arab towns to protect the Israeli citizens. Then they started to become martyrs, the Palestinians, and blow themselves with suicide belt, killing over 1,000 Israelis from 2000 to 2005. Israel then built a security fence along the Green Line, the 1949 ceasefire borders between Israel and Jordan, to block the terror group to come freely into Israel proper. The Palestinian demand for the land in Judea and Samaria is based on nothing more than their desire to have it for a state. Wanting something is not the same as being entitled to it. No Palestinian state has ever existed. The Palestinians never had sovereignty over the land, so it could not have been taken from them. Israel is under no obligation to turn over any more land or authority to them than what was mutually agreed to in the Oslo Accord. Sadly, the Palestinians show no sign of being satisfied with controlling the West Bank. Their maps and rhetoric indicate they believe all of Israel should be theirs. The questions for Israel remain whether they believe peace can be achieved by sacrificing their claim to that part of the land, whether a peace that cannot be assured for the long term is worth the cost, and whether continued settlement and possibly annexation of Judea and Samaria will make them safer without jeopardizing their democratic values. This is Shula Roman Horen, here from the West Bank, Judea and Samaria.